Hello! Have no fear, this April Fool's video is not a prank. But in the spirit of the season, I would like to share with you my top 5 fools/comedians of all time. Obviously, some of you may not agree with me, but it's my video, so there. Number 5. Robin Williams. I know it seems sad to start a list on this note, but let's remember the joy he brought to our lives. Mrs. Doubtfire was one of the first films that legitimately made me cry with laughter. His fast-talking improv was astounding, and his turn on Whose Line Is It Anyway is one of the greatest episodes ever. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Number 4. Weird Al Yankovic. Pretty fly for a rabbi, word crimes, white and nerdy. My affinity for Weird Al started, as most people's did, as a teenager. And to this day, I still know all the words to Amish Paradise. Well, I walk through the valley as I harvest my grain. I take a look at my wife and realize she's very plain. But that's just perfect for an Amish like me. You know I shun fancy things like electricity. Number 3. Hugh Laurie. Before Dr. House was a thing, the cantankerous American doctor was actually a dippy, lovable, posh Brit, someone who I could identify with quite a bit. His portrayal as George in Blackadder III solidified my love for his comedic stylings. Not to mention a bit of Fry Laurie, Jeeves and Wooster, but mostly George. Number 2. Rowan Atkinson. Speaking of Blackadder, the man himself is quite possibly one of the greatest living comics. His traditional style of silent comedy as Mr. Bean, the sarcastic Blackadder, and even his sketches with the invisible drum kit and the school teacher are pure comic gold. Before I go on to my number 1, I do want to make some honourable mentions. Tommy Cooper. Morecambe and Wise. Monty Python's Flying Circus.
This is an ex-parent!
My wife on her amazing channel, What's Her Name?
Do you guys go to England and have a spot of tea?
And where I first learned comedy, my dad. And now, my number 1 fool/comedian of all time.
Alrighty then.
Ta-da! Jim Carrey! How was I to know that one day my admiration of Jim Carrey would manifest itself by my face growing to look like his? But this isn't some ego trip because I look like him a little bit. Every time I look into Jim Carrey's career and what he can do, I'm reminded as to just what a comic genius he is.
Alrighty, let's start with a stretch. And down. Okay.
That physical comedy, folks, is not easy. Believe me, I've tried it. The premise to a lot of his films is sometimes so simple, but Jim manages to make them so interesting and watchable and funny by just being him and being in them, to the extent where he'll even crack up his fellow cast members. See Liar Liar outtakes for reference. Well, I hope you enjoyed my list of fools. Let me know in the comments below who would be on your list. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, you can now play Pac-Man on Google Maps. There's a link in the description so your productivity can sink even lower. Thanks so much for watching, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.